Millionaire finds pregnant homeless woman collapsed outside his company, but the birthmark on her neck made him break down in tears. The thin rain falling over the city that Tuesday night wasn't just water. It felt like a warning that the world was crying along with those who had no shelter. The biting wind sliced through the high-rise canyon of Midtown, ignoring the towering presence of the mirrored buildings and punishing those down below on the sidewalk. Claire felt every freezing drop like a needle on her skin. At 24, she carried a weight far beyond her years. Her belly, prominent and heavy at 8 months pregnant, was simultaneously her greatest blessing and her greatest worry. She walked slowly, dragging her swollen feet in worn-out sneakers that had definitely seen better days, hugging her threadbare coat to her chest in a futile attempt to shield the baby from the cold. Claire's life hadn't always been this way. Until recently, she had a rented room, a job as a counter clerk at a local bakery, and modest dreams. But life has a way of turning, doesn't it? One setback led to another. First, the layoff when her pregnancy began to show and her boss claimed he couldn't afford the liability of maternity leave. Then her boyfriend, who had sworn eternal love, vanished as soon as the bills piled up, leaving behind only debt and silence. Eviction was the final blow. "Hang in there, sweetheart," she whispered to her belly, her voice trembling from hunger and cold. "Mommy is going to find a dry spot." But the truth was her strength was gone. Claire hadn't eaten a decent meal in 2 days. Dizziness came in waves, making the car lights look like distant, colored blurs. She looked up at the imposing awning of a gigantic corporate building, made of glass and black marble. It looked like a temple to a distant, indifferent god. Here, at least, it wasn't raining. She took 2 more steps toward the entrance of the luxurious skyscraper. Her legs, exhausted from carrying the world, simply gave out. There was no time to brace herself against the wall. The cold granite floor rushed up to meet her, and darkness consumed everything before she even felt the pain of the fall. 30 stories above that cold sidewalk, the atmosphere was different, yet the solitude was strangely similar. Robert Alastair stood in his panoramic office, observing the city below. As the CEO of one of the nation's largest conglomerates, he had the world at his feet. The suit he wore cost more than Claire would earn in a year. His bank account held numbers most people couldn't even imagine. But if you looked closely into his eyes, you'd see a weary man. At 45, Robert had purchased everything money allowed: cars, homes, travel, respect. But he hadn't bought what truly mattered: peace of mind. He looked at his reflection in the glass and saw a man who had sacrificed everything for ambition. 2 decades ago, he made the biggest mistake of his life. There was a love, a sweet young woman named Helena, and an unexpected pregnancy. Young and ambitious at the time, pressured by his wealthy family, he turned his back. He heard later that she had lost the baby or terminated the pregnancy. He never knew for certain, because he never had the courage to seek the truth. Helena vanished, and he moved on, building an empire on foundations of guilt. "Mr. Alastair?" His secretary, Sarah's voice, came over the intercom. "The car is waiting in the private garage." "Send the driver home today, Sarah," he replied on impulse. "I'm going to walk a bit. I need some air." Robert grabbed his Italian leather briefcase, dimmed the lights in the immense office, and descended in the exclusive elevator. He needed to feel the city, needed to step out of that climate-controlled bubble, even if it meant facing the rain. As he walked out through the gilded revolving door, the temperature contrast hit him. The air was frigid. He adjusted the collar of his expensive overcoat and took the first step onto the pavement. That's when he saw her. There was a pile of old clothes tucked into the corner of the entrance, near a decorative potted plant. Robert frowned, annoyed, thinking about calling security. But then he realized the shape. It was a person, a woman, and by the silhouette beneath the open coat, she was pregnant. Robert's heart skipped a beat. The image was brutal. All the luxury of his building, and at its feet, the purest human fragility. He didn't think about the grime, his reputation, or his designer suit. Instinct took over. Robert ran to her and knelt on the wet ground. "Hey, miss, can you hear me?" he called, his voice laced with urgency. Claire didn't respond. She was pale, her lips slightly blue from the cold. Robert touched her face. It was icy. Panic, a feeling he rarely experienced in business, flooded him. He fumbled in his pocket for his cell phone, dialing 911 with trembling fingers. "I need an ambulance. Now." In front of the Alistair Tower on Park Avenue. "It's a pregnant woman. She's unconscious," he yelled into the phone. His CEO authority replaced by the desperation of an ordinary human being. While he waited, Robert noticed her breathing was shallow and strained. The coat seemed tight around her neck. "Hold on, I'm going to help you," he murmured, more to himself than to her. Carefully, he moved the collar of the shabby coat and the old scarf she was wearing, trying to clear her airway. The yellowish glow of the street lamp illuminated the young woman's pale neck. And that's when time stopped. The world around Robert, the sound of the rain, the distant traffic, the wind, all went silent. His eyes fixed on a detail on the side of Claire's neck. It was a birthmark. Not just any mark, but a very specific shape. An irregular crescent moon, the color of café au lait, drawn on her skin. Robert's hand let go of the coat and flew, instinctively, to his own neck, in the exact same spot. He knew what was there, hidden beneath the starched collar of his dress shirt. An identical mark. A mark his father had, that he had, and that the child he thought he had lost would possess. Memories hit him like a tsunami, tearing down all the barriers he had erected for 2 decades. He looked at the face of the collapsed young woman. Now, his attention sharpened by shock, he saw it. The shape of her nose, the curve of her brow. They were Helena's features, mixed with his own. Couldn't be. Or could it? "It can't be," he whispered, his voice choked. Tears sprung instantly, hot, mixing with the cold rain on his face. Robert Alistair, the Iron Man of business, was kneeling on the sidewalk, sobbing convulsively before a stranger who, his heart screamed, was no stranger at all. "My daughter." The word came out strange, heavy, yet liberating. He held Claire's cold, calloused hand between his own soft, well-manicured hands, trying to transfer his warmth to her. 20 years of guilt, the doubt about that baby's fate, all converged in that absurd, miraculous moment. The sound of the ambulance siren growing louder brought him back to practical reality. She needed help, both her and the baby, his grandchild. The arrival at the hospital was a blur of lights and rushing. Robert never left the side of the gurney. When the nurses tried to block him at the emergency entrance, asking who he was, Robert drew himself up with all the authority he possessed. "I am her father," he declared, and the firmness in his voice left no room for doubt, though inside he was crumbling. "And I demand she receives the best care this hospital can offer. I'll pay whatever it costs." The following hours were slow agony in the VIP waiting room the hospital quickly arranged for him. Robert paced back and forth, ignoring the incessant calls on his cell. Probably his fiancée, Victoria, asking why he wasn't home for dinner. None of it mattered now. Finally, a doctor appeared. "She's stable, Mr. Alistair." It was a severe case of malnutrition and exhaustion, compounded by a drop in blood pressure. "The baby is fine. A strong boy, but she needs absolute rest and proper nutrition. She woke up and is asking where she is." Robert felt such immense relief that he had to sit down. He took a deep breath, wiped his face, and followed the doctor. Entering the room, he saw Claire. She looked small in the large hospital bed, connected to an 4-drip, clean and warm, but her eyes were wide with fear. When she saw Robert enter, this elegant man who exuded power, she shrank back, pulling the sheet up. "Who are you, sir?" Her voice was weak, hoarse. "I can't afford this. I need to leave." Robert stopped at the foot of the bed. He wanted to run and embrace her, beg forgiveness for 24 years of absence, but he knew he would scare the young woman. He needed to take it slow. "You don't have to pay for anything, Claire," he said her name softly, having discovered it from the old documents in her meager bag. "My name is Robert. I found you in front of my building." Claire watched him with suspicion. Life on the street teaches you not to trust free kindness. Why did you help me? Nobody helps people like me without wanting something in return. The question stabbed Robert like a knife. He pulled up a chair and sat near her, maintaining a respectful distance. I helped because... He hesitated. How could he say this? Because I saw something in you. Robert lifted his hand to his neck and unbuttoned his shirt collar, exposing the skin on the side. You have a mark just like this one, Claire. The young woman automatically touched her own neck. She knew that mark. Her mother always said it was her lucky mark, though luck seemed to have forgotten them. Claire looked at the mark on the rich man's neck and then into his eyes. They were watery, red. Your mother, was her name Helena? Robert asked, his voice cracking. The shock on Claire's face was visible. How do you know my mother's name? She died 3 years ago. The news of Helena's death was another blow, but Robert held his composure. He needed to be strong for Claire now. I knew your mother, Claire. A long time ago. We had a history, and when I saw you and I saw the mark, I knew. I did the math. Your age, the time that passed. I am sorry about Helena. Claire shook her head, denying it, tears starting to stream. It was too much information. She was alone, pregnant, homeless, and suddenly a millionaire appears claiming to be her father? It seemed like a feverish delusion. Are you saying that you're my father? She whispered, afraid of the answer. I am, Robert affirmed, and for the first time in years, he felt he was speaking the purest truth of his life. I made many mistakes, Claire. I didn't know you existed, or rather, I was led to believe you didn't. But I'm here now, and I swear on my life, you will never be cold or hungry again. There was a long silence in the room, only the sound of the heart monitor and the rain hitting the window. Claire looked at this stranger who claimed to be her own blood. There was pain in his eyes, a genuine pain she recognized because she saw it in the mirror every day. She didn't throw herself into his arms. Life had made her too tough for that. But she also didn't push him away. She was too tired to fight alone. I have nowhere to go when I leave here, she admitted, lowering her guard, shame coloring her cheeks. You do, Robert answered instantly, standing up. You're coming to my house, to our home. 2 days later, she was discharged. The scene outside the hospital was curious. The powerful Robert, accustomed to commanding global meetings, awkwardly carried a bag of medications and vitamins while supporting Claire to the armored Cadillac Escalade. During the drive to the mansion, silence prevailed. Claire looked out the window, watching the city pass by, incredulous that she was inside that expensive leather car and not on the pavement. Robert watched her out of the corner of his eye, marveling and terrified at the responsibility that had just landed in his lap. When the car drove through the gates of Robert's mansion, Claire held her breath. The house was immense, like a palace from a movie set. Perfectly manicured lawns, water fountains, massive windows. Is this here? She asked, intimidated. It is, Robert smiled, a shy smile. It's too big for one man. It needs life. It needs family. They got out of the car. Robert insisted on opening the door for her. When they entered the grand foyer, with its double-height ceiling and crystal chandelier, Claire felt like an intruder. Her clothes, even the new ones Robert had purchased, seemed too simple for this place. But then, Robert did something unexpected. He didn't take her to a distant guest suite. I had the room next to mine prepared, he said. I want you and the baby close. Anything you need, anything at all. I'll be one door away. Claire looked at him. The suspicion was still there, but a small flame of hope was beginning to ignite in her chest. Maybe, just maybe, the nightmare was over. Thank you, Robert, she said, still unable to call him Dad. Welcome home, daughter, he replied, emotional. As they ascended the staircase, both their lives were already irrevocably intertwined. The solitary millionaire and the pregnant homeless woman now shared the same roof and the same blood. But what they didn't know was that Claire's arrival in that house wouldn't only bring joy. There were shadows in that world of luxury. Victoria, Robert's fiancée, wouldn't accept losing her queen status so easily. And the past, once unearthed, sometimes brings secrets that can destroy newly built trust. But for that night, as the rain continued outside, Claire slept in a soft bed, secure, knowing someone watched over her sleep just a door away. Can you imagine the emotional whiplash this father experienced? To spend a lifetime burying a past mistake, only to literally trip over its consequences on the pavement? It's chilling how mysteriously fate works. Now I ask you, if you were Claire, after so much suffering and rejection, could you open your heart and trust this father who appeared out of nowhere? Or would the fear of being abandoned again win out? The story of Claire and Robert is just beginning, and the trials ahead will test this fragile bond to its limit. Drop a comment below. Would you forgive? Write yes if you'd give the father a chance, or an O if you'd find it impossible to trust. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the thrilling continuation. Part 2 is going to shake the foundations of this new family. The first few days in Robert's mansion were, to say the least, strange. Imagine spending months sleeping on concrete, fleeing the rain and violence, and suddenly waking up in Egyptian cotton sheets, with a breakfast tray worthy of a movie star beside the bed. Claire would open her eyes and take a few seconds to remember where she was. The silence of that immense room was so profound it buzzed in ears accustomed to the roar of traffic. Robert, in turn, lived in a kind of trance. The ruthless businessman, who could fire directors without blinking, now found himself tiptoeing down the hallway, afraid of waking his daughter. He canceled meetings, delegated responsibilities, and turned the home library into a command center for the most important project of his life, as he told his confused assistants. The adjustment wasn't easy. Claire felt like a fish out of water. She was ashamed to ask the staff for anything. She made her own bed, to the horror of the housekeeper, and avoided the most luxurious rooms for fear of breaking something. But Robert was determined to tear down those invisible walls. He realized that money, which solved everything in his world, was useless here. He had to offer something priceless: time and affection. The first major barrier fell in the kitchen. On a Sunday afternoon, dismissing the chef, Robert rolled up the sleeves of his dress shirt. "Your mother," he began, awkwardly chopping onions. "She made a soup, chicken and rice soup actually, with a lot of parsley and a touch of lemon. I never forgot the smell." Claire, who was sitting on a stool watching, smiled genuinely for the first time. It wasn't just parsley. She put in a pinch of nutmeg. She said it was the secret to curing any sadness. Robert stopped, the knife suspended in the air, moved by the shared memory. "Will you teach me?" he asked humbly. And there, among pots and spices, father and daughter cooked together. The aroma that filled the cold, modern kitchen of the mansion brought the past back, but in a good way. When they sat down to eat that simple soup, the ice had melted. Robert talked about being young and foolish, how his family pressured him to focus on his career, and how he bitterly regretted not fighting for Helena. Claire, in turn, spoke about her mother's strength, who never spoke badly of him, only saying that fate takes crooked paths. Trust grew through small gestures. Robert filled the house with life. Where there were once cold, abstract sculptures, now there were cribs, state-of-the-art strollers, and giant teddy bears. He looked like a child in a toy store, wanting to make up for 24 years in 24 days. The most touching moment happened one quiet evening in the living room. Claire was on the sofa, her hand on her belly, wincing in discomfort. Robert, who was reading a newspaper nearby, dropped everything and rushed over. "What is it? Are you in pain? Should we go to the hospital?" "No, Dad." The word Dad came out naturally, without her realizing it, and Robert felt his eyes water. "He's just active, kicking a lot." Robert froze, looking at his daughter's abdomen. "May I?" he asked, his voice weak. Claire nodded and took her father's large, trembling hand, placing it over her belly. Seconds later, a strong kick. Robert laughed and cried at the same time. There, feeling his grandson's life pulse against his palm, he made a silent promise to God. "I will never fail them again. Never." To seal this new phase, Robert led Claire to his office and opened his personal safe. From it, he didn't take money or jewelry, but a small velvet box. Inside, there was an old, yellowed photo. It was Helena, young, smiling in the sunlight in a park, her hand on her belly, the belly where Claire was beginning to grow. "I kept this for decades," he confessed. "Even when I got married, even when I got divorced. This photo was proof that I had a heart somewhere. Now I know the heart wasn't in the photo. It was growing far away from me." Claire hugged her father. It was a tight embrace, the hug of someone finally releasing the weight of the world. That night, she slept feeling that, for the first time, the future wasn't a black hole, but an illuminated path. But intense happiness often bothers those who live in darkness. Victoria, Robert's fiancée, was traveling on business in Paris when all this happened. Upon returning and finding the mansion transformed into a nursery, and a street stranger installed in the main guest suite, the shock was brutal. Victoria was a sophisticated woman, beautiful and cold as an iceberg. To her, Robert was a trophy and a bank account. Love was merely a convenient social contract. The first encounter between the two was tense. Victoria looked Claire up and down, turning up her nose at the comfortable maternity clothes she wore. "So this is the visitor?" Victoria asked, with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "This is my daughter, Victoria." "Claire," Robert corrected firmly. Victoria swallowed hard, masking her instant hatred. She saw not a stepdaughter, but a threat to her inheritance, status, and Robert's attention. If that girl and the baby stayed, Victoria's slice of the pie would shrink drastically. In the following days, Victoria began a subtle, poisonous campaign. She didn't attack Claire directly in front of Robert. She was too smart for that. She acted in the shadows. Loose comments during dinner, innocent questions loaded with malice. "It's curious, isn't it, darling?" she said, serving Robert wine. "How she appeared exactly in front of your building, only yours, and knew exactly what to say. Birthmarks. Well, these days with tattoos and makeup, anything is possible." "Don't start, Victoria. I feel she is my child. The DNA test is coming next week, but I don't need paperwork to know. Of course, my love, I just want to protect you. You have such a good heart, and these people, they smell money from miles away. Have you thought about what if she's a professional con artist? Imagine the scandal in the press. CEO duped by fake daughter. The company's stock would plummet. The seed of doubt is a powerful weed." Even Robert, with all his emotional certainty, began to feel the weight of corporate responsibility. What if he was being naive? Victoria noticed the hesitation and made her move. She hired an unscrupulous private investigator, paying a fortune for him to manufacture a dossier. Within days, she had perfectly forged documents, police records of a Claire involved in fraud in another city, manipulated photos, false testimonies. On a rainy afternoon, much like the night they met, Victoria walked into Robert's office and threw the folder onto his desk. "I didn't want to show you this, Robert. I swear I didn't. But I love you too much to let you be made a fool of." Robert opened the folder. His hands shook as he read the reports. It claimed Claire was part of a gang specializing in extorting lonely executives, that the pregnancy was real but used as a tool for the scam, that she had researched his life for months. Robert's world spun. The pain of betrayal is worse when it comes from someone you just learned to love. He felt like an old fool. The cold logic of the businessman fought against the heart of the father, and in that moment of weakness, fear won. He sent for Claire. When she entered the office, smiling, bringing a decor sketch for the baby's room, she found a different Robert. The affectionate look was gone, replaced by a mask of pain and distrust. "Dad? What's wrong?" "Don't call me that," Robert said, his voice low but sharp. He pushed the papers toward her. "How much do you want? Name your price. I'll pay you to leave and never come back." Claire picked up the papers, confused. As she read the absurd lies, her face lost color. "Robert, this is fake. I don't even know these people," she cried, desperate. It was her, wasn't it? Your fiancé. Don't put the blame on others. Robert exploded, slamming his hand on the desk. The proof is right here. How could I be so stupid? The birthmark on the neck. Was it all an act? Did you research my mother? Helena? The question hit Claire like a physical blow. The pain of seeing the man she had begun to love as a father look at her like a monster was unbearable. But, above the pain, pride surfaced. The pride of someone who survived the streets, who maintained dignity even in hunger. She didn't cry. She swallowed the tears, lifted her chin, and dropped the papers on the desk. I don't want your money. I thought I found a father, but I only found a scared, rich man. Keep your mansion, keep your fiancé, and keep your doubts. My son won't have a grandfather who questions his mother's honor. Claire turned and walked out. She went upstairs to the room, grabbing nothing Robert had bought. Not the clothes, nor the baby gifts. She put on her old, threadbare coat, slipped into her worn sneakers, and hurried down the stairs. Victoria watched from the mezzanine above, victorious, a glass of champagne in her hand. Robert remained in the office, sinking into his chair, his head in his hands, wanting to believe he had done the right thing, but feeling he had just committed the biggest mistake of his life for the second time. Claire walked out the gates of the mansion. The rain fell mercilessly. She had no money, nowhere to go, and the emotional pain quickly turned into physical agony. The extreme stress took its toll. Walking aimlessly through the dark streets, feeling the cold penetrate her bones, Claire felt a sharp pang in her abdomen. It wasn't the baby kicking. It was a contraction. Strong, long, paralyzing. She leaned against a lamppost, gasping. Another contraction. Her water broke, the fluid running down her legs and mixing with the rain on the sidewalk. Not now, son. Please, not now, she pleaded. With her last bit of strength, she dragged herself toward a community shelter she knew by sight, a crowded, precarious place. She collapsed at the entrance, screaming for help. Meanwhile, in the mansion, the silence was deafening. Robert looked at Helena's photo, and something didn't fit. He picked up the dossier again. He read carefully. He saw a date, a minuscule detail. One of Claire's alleged crimes was supposed to have happened on a date when she was admitted to the county hospital. According to the medical records he himself had seen days earlier, Robert's blood ran cold. It was fake, all fake. He ran to Claire's room, empty, the new clothes untouched in the closet, the assembled crib waiting FO. Are a baby who might never come home. What have I done? He whispered to the void. My God, what have I done? This situation is desperate. On one side, Claire is alone, in premature labor in a resource-strapped location, hurt in body and soul. On the other, Robert has just realized he drove his own daughter and grandson out into the storm, falling for the trap of an ambitious woman. His regret is a bitter taste, but regret won't save lives. Time is running out. Will he find her before it's too late? Or will fate demand the ultimate price for his distrust? The story is reaching its most critical moment. Now, tell me honestly, what would you have done in Robert's place after seeing that dossier? Would you have believed the papers or your heart? Comment papers or heart below. Don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel, because part 3 brings the conclusion of this story, and I guarantee you'll need tissues. The ending is breathtaking. The silence in Robert's office was broken by a roar of fury that startled even the staff downstairs. He crumpled the false dossier with such force that his knuckles turned white. The date, that minuscule detail, that stupid error by the crooked investigator, had been the key. On the day the report claimed Claire was running a scam in another city, Robert was sitting next to her bed in the hospital, holding her hand while she received an 4 drip. He had been fooled. Worse, he had chosen to believe fear instead of believing blood. Robert stormed down the mansion stairs like a hurricane. Victoria was in the living room, sipping her champagne, a triumphant smile on her red lips. When she saw the expression on his face, the smile died. Robert, what is it, darling? You look tense. He didn't stop. He walked up to her, snatched the glass from her hand, and threw it against the fireplace, the sound of shattering crystal echoing like a gunshot. "It's over, Victoria." "What? What are you talking about?" She tried to maintain her composure, but her voice trembled. "I know the dossier is fake. I know you paid that cheap investigator to destroy my daughter." Victoria opened her mouth to deny it, to invent another lie, but Robert's gaze was pure ice. There was no room for negotiation. "You have 10 minutes to leave my house. If you don't, I'm calling the police and handing over the evidence of fraud and slander. And you know I have the best lawyers in the country. You will leave here with nothing, Victoria. Exactly as you deserve." The socialite's mask dropped. Victoria cursed, screamed, showing her true face of unbridled ambition. But Robert no longer heard her. He turned his back and ran out into the rain. He had a mission far more important than dealing with the garbage Victoria represented. He needed to find Claire. The chauffeur tried to open the car door, but Robert waved him off and took the wheel. He drove through the flooded streets of the city like a madman, his heart pounding in his throat. Where would she go? She had no money, no friends, no connections. He called the cell phone he had given her. Voicemail. He called the police. Nothing reported. Then, a memory surfaced. During the soup dinner, Claire mentioned a shelter downtown, where a nun used to give her food before everything got worse. "Sister Margaret," she had said, "at the Mercy House." Robert spun the wheel, tires squealing on the wet asphalt. Arriving at the shelter, the scene was chaos. There were leaks, people sleeping on the floor, and an elderly nun rushing back and forth. Robert, in his soaked suit and Italian leather shoes, looked like an alien in that place. "Sister," he called, holding the nun's arm gently but firmly. "I'm looking for a young woman, pregnant, Claire. She has a birthmark on her neck." The nun looked at him with profound sadness. "Sweet Claire, she was here an hour ago. She arrived unwell, screaming in pain. Her water broke, but there was blood. A lot of blood." Robert's world swayed. "Where is she? Where did they take her?" "The city ambulance took her to City General Hospital. It was serious, son. They said it was placental abruption. Pray. Pray hard." Robert didn't pray. He ran. City General Hospital was a labyrinth of crowded hallways, gurneys lining the corridors, and the smell of disinfectant mixed with suffering. Robert ignored the receptionist who told him to take a number. He invaded the obstetrics wing using the only language closed doors quickly understand. Authority. "I am Robert Alastair," he bellowed at a resident doctor who tried to block him. "My daughter is here, Claire Alastair, and if anything happens to her or my grandson due to lack of resources, I will buy this hospital and fire every single one of you. Where is she?" The doctor, intimidated and sensing the gravity of the situation, checked the clipboard. "She's in operating room 3, emergency C-section. The baby is in fetal distress, and the mother is hemorrhaging." "Sir, you can't go in there." Robert didn't wait. He ran down the sterile hallway, shoved open the double doors, and entered the surgical prep area. Through the glass, he saw her. Claire was pale, almost translucent, surrounded by doctors and nurses working frantically. The heart monitor beeped at an alarming rhythm. She was awake, but her eyes were glassy, staring at the ceiling, tears silently rolling down her temples. A nurse tried to hold Robert back, but the chief surgeon, recognizing a father's despair, signaled to let him pass, provided he put on a mask and gown. Robert approached the head of the bed. He held his daughter's freezing hand. "Claire," he whispered, his voice broken by tears. She turned her face slowly. When she saw Robert, she tried to pull her hand away, but she was too weak. "Go away," she murmured, her voice fading. "You believe the papers. You don't want me." "No." Robert squeezed her hand, kissing her cold fingers. "I was an idiot, daughter. A blind, old idiot. The papers were fake. Victoria forged everything. I kicked her out. I'm here. I saw the wrong date. I discovered the truth. Forgive me. For God's sake. Forgive me. Don't give up." The monitor beeped faster. "Her pressure is dropping," shouted the anesthetist. We need to get the baby out now. I can't take any more. Claire closed her eyes, her life force draining away. The trauma of rejection mixed with the pain of labor was shutting down her body. You can take it. Robert spoke loudly, pressing his forehead against hers. You are Helena's daughter. You survived the streets, the cold, the hunger. You won't leave us now. I just found you. I promise, Claire. I promise I'll spend the rest of my life making up for every second. Stay with me. It was at that moment of absolute tension, where life and death danced on a knife's edge, that a sound cut through the air. A cry, loud, strong, indignant. The surgeon lifted a small, purplish creature covered in vernix. It's a boy, the doctor announced, and he has the lungs of an opera singer. Robert looked at his grandson. Then he looked at Claire. Did you hear that, daughter? He's calling you. He needs his mother. Claire opened her eyes. The sound of her son seemed to have injected adrenaline directly into her heart. She took a deep breath, pulling in the air she needed. Color slowly began to return to her cheeks. She looked at Robert, and this time, she didn't see the suspicious millionaire. She saw the father who was there, holding her hand so tightly it hurt, sobbing copiously with relief. Is he okay? She asked. He is perfect, Robert smiled, his tears wetting his surgical mask. And you're going to be fine too. We're going to be fine. The surgery finished. The danger passed. But in that cold hospital room, something much warmer had been forged. Forgiveness wasn't spoken in formal words, but sealed in the moment Robert refused to let go of her hand. Even when the doctors said the worst was over, the following days were for recovery. Robert had Claire moved to a private suite, but he never left her side. Victoria tried to call, tried to send lawyers, but Robert blocked her from his life with the efficiency of someone cutting a rotten branch to save the tree. Her reputation in high society was ruined not by Robert's vengeance, but by the truth that leaked out. The woman who forged crimes to send a pregnant woman out into the rain. No one wanted to be associated with such cruelty. Epilogue. Helena's legacy. 6 months passed. Robert Alastair's mansion no longer looked the same. The austere silence and cold minimalist decor had vanished. Now, there was a colorful playpen in the living room and toys scattered across the expensive Persian rug. It was a sunny Sunday morning. In the garden, Robert was sitting on the grass. Yes, the CEO in a suit and tie was now sitting on the grass, holding a chubby, laughing baby boy in his lap. Look who's coming, little Luke, Robert said, tickling his grandson's belly. It's Mommy. Claire walked across the lawn carrying a tray with juice. She was different. Her hair was shiny, her skin flushed, and the look of fear and suspicion had been replaced by a secure serenity. She was no longer the homeless girl. She was a woman who knew her place in the world and in the heart of her family. Was the meeting with the architects confirmed? Claire asked, sitting next to her father and pouring him a glass. Confirmed for Tuesday, Robert replied proudly. The Helena Foundation is moving ahead faster than planned. They had decided to turn the pain into purpose. Robert donated one of his commercial buildings to create a center for single mothers and pregnant women experiencing homelessness. It wouldn't just be a shelter, but a home with professional training courses, daycare, and psychological support. Claire would be the director. Who better to understand the pain of those arriving than someone who had been there? Claire picked up her son, kissing his soft cheek. Lucas had the same birthmark on his neck, a small café au lait-colored crescent moon. Robert watched the scene. He thought about all the money he had in the bank, all the companies, all the power, and he realized he would trade all of it, without a second thought, for that exact moment. His daughter safe, his grandson healthy, and a clear conscience. Dad, Claire called, pulling him from his reverie. Yes, darling? Thank you for coming to find me at that hospital. Thank you for not giving up when I told you to go away. Robert reached out and touched the mark on his daughter's neck, and then his grandson's. I lost 24 years, Claire. I didn't have the right to lose another second. Family isn't about never making mistakes. It's about having the courage to come back and fix them. and I'm going to spend the rest of my life fixing things. The sun shone on their faces, warming their skin, very different from that cold rain the night they met on the sidewalk. The storm had passed. The winter of Robert's solitude and Claire's hardship were over. Now it was spring, and in the garden of that house, love blossomed, strong and unbreakable, proving that it is never too late to welcome those we love. What an emotional journey, right? Seeing Robert stripped of all that arrogance, fighting for the life of his daughter and grandson, shows that true love has the power to transform even the hardest hearts. And Claire, who found strength where she had none to forgive and build a new future. This story teaches us that money can buy the best hospital bed, but it can't buy the hand that holds yours when you're scared. Only love does that. And you? What did you think of Robert's actions in the end? Did he redeem himself for the mistakes of the past? Leave the word family in the comments if you believe their love conquered everything, or tell us if you would have done something different if you were Claire. If this story touched your heart, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications. And share this story with someone who needs to be reminded that it's never too late to start over and forgive. Until the next story.